right, well, welcome to the Design Rescue Show, where we pull back the curtain and take a look at, behind the scenes at the career journeys of creative talents from a variety of fields. I am your host, David Block, and with us today, joining us is Jeff Heath, who is a creative director with Disney Plus. And before we move on and introduce and get to know Jeff, I'd like to share a little bit of his work.
Disney Plus wanted me to tell everyone that they have the greatest shows and movies of all time. So I was like, oh, cool, you guys have all the goats. And they laughed, like, a lot. And now, here we are. So there's Lion King, the goat. Oh, Avengers Endgame, the goat. Huh, this must be Star Wars, the goat. Free Solo, the goat. Doing a great job.
Thank you.
I was talking to the goat. The Simpsons, the goat. I feel you, Homer. A lot of goats here. These are all the new goats. Mirabelle. Okay, we do have a bit of a nibbling problem. All the Pixar goats. Goats on goats on goats. Wow, big ol' herd. Nothing weird here at all. Just another day. Oh, okay. I'll get the next one.
The greatest movies and shows of all time are only on Disney Plus.
Outstanding. All right, let me get back out of there. All right, and so Jeff has a little bit of experience. Let me say this: he got a lot of experience as creative director in lots of fantastic companies. To be honest with you, your resume looks like my bucket list of places where I would love to work. You worked with Young and Rubicam, the Traffic Agency, Chiat Day, Ogilvy and Mather, Phenomenon. You've worked with NBC Universal, and you're currently with Disney Plus. Is that right?
I am. I'm currently an employee or cast member, as we say, of Disney, of the Walt Disney Company. And as you mentioned, David, my job description or my title is creative director on Disney Plus. And don't be careful what you wish for. Yes, I have worked at all of those places. Some are better than others. Let me tell you, they aren't necessarily the dream job. That some were great, but some were challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I've certainly been in a lot of different places, and I have to say that where I am now, I could not be happier. It's sort of the culmination of everything I've done, and it's just a great place to be and a great place to work.
It's awesome. So could you share with us your journey from when you started out in the industry and how you became a creative director with some of these major companies?
Absolutely. So it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a linear route by any means. A lot of people, especially these days, they get into this business by going to design school or art center. They go to portfolio center or some sort of other advertising school or advertising major. I went to UC Irvine, which probably many of you might have heard of. You guys are based in Orange County. I know that. I think I didn't mention, David, to you that my freshman roommate's girlfriend actually went to El Dorado, so I'm familiar with the school. So I majored in economics and psychology. Actually, let me backtrack. My goal coming out of high school is become an architect. I went to UC Irvine. I was an athlete. I played sports, and I got recruited to play baseball at UC Irvine. And I said, okay, great. I'd love to come. Sounds great. They didn't have an architecture major. So I said, okay, let me change to computer science, of all things. That didn't work out. Fast forward, I ended up with a psychology and economics major, which you wouldn't necessarily think would be a direct connection to what I do now, but it kind of is. I'll get into that later. I worked right out of college. I worked for this company as a purchasing agent, which is a buyer. I bought, for manufacturing companies, screws and bolts and nuts and all that, and plastic, thousands of dollars of plastic. And I was 21 years old. It was a pretty intense job. But I knew I wouldn't end up there. And we had a marketing department. I got to be friendly with I guess her title was VP of marketing. And I started looking at the ads she was making, or her team was making. I was like, what's that? And she was like, that's an advertisement. oh, that looks really cool. Who makes these and how does this happen? Who designs these and writes these? And we just started talking about the process, and like that's really interesting because by this time, I've always been writing sort of on the side, and I have all the, I have loads of unfinished projects, books and screenplays, and some are finished, some are not. But I've always been a writer. I've always enjoyed doing it, and I thought to myself, that seems like a job I would enjoy. I can still be creative while I'm writing the great American novel, whatever else it might be. So I moved to New York. I had my college girlfriend. She had moved to New York about 6 months before that, tried to get me to go there. And so I'm like, oh, Madison Avenue, New York. That was where for the most part, it was starting to change by then, but a lot of advertising agencies are based in New York. And I went to a temp agency and said, I would like to be a temp, but I'll only work at ad agencies. And so they hooked me up at Ogilvy and Mather. My first job in advertising was a temp, and I was there for a month, and it was the greatest month of my life. But then that had to end, and then I temped at a place called Saatchi and Saatchi. And then as I was doing that, I was working on my portfolio. Now back then, I'm going to age myself. I'm only 27. No, back then, the internet was just, as far as an advertising medium and as far as posting your work to the internet, it was just getting up and running. And so I started to build my portfolio in all print stuff, all print. I learned Photoshop. I learned something your students may or may not know called Quark, and then InDesign.
Yeah.
David, do you know what that
learning
is?
InDesign. Quark has long gone
Yes,
in
it
their
is.
realm. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So basically, Quark was InDesign for the Stone Ages. And I taught myself all that stuff. I learned to be a designer, rudimentary designer. And I made fake ads. And that's how you sort of did it back then when you were coming up. And even now you do that at portfolio schools. And by that time I had a full-time job as an assistant to a creative director at an agency. It wasn't an agency that I wanted to work at for a long time. And so I sent that book around to a bunch of agencies in New York, some just unsolicited, a couple I knew somebody there who helped me get in, and I got a job at this agency that ended up, it was like one of the first digital agencies in New York. And I worked there for a couple of years, then got recruited I won some awards, and God, this is a really long story. Oh my God. I wonder when will it end? I won a couple of awards. I got into some award books and award shows and all that. And so my name was sort of out there, and I got a call to come to San Francisco and take a job there. And that's sort of how it all started.
Excellent. So what were some of the pivotal moments or projects that propelled your career forward?
Yeah, I would say a huge pivotal moment was when I got that first job I just mentioned. I didn't have any experience except being an assistant. Nobody even got back to me with any of my books. And then I'll never forget this moment. I was living in Brooklyn, and there was a message on our answering machine. Students, an answering machine is an old piece of technology that people used to have, much like your cell phone, your voicemail. And I got home, and there was a message from this guy, Miguel Gonzalez, who was the creative director at this agency. And he's like, Jeff, we love your book. We want to come in and talk to you. And I just about fell on the floor. Like, I didn't think anybody loved my book. That was a huge moment in my life as a creative. As far as pivotal projects go, I would have to say, fast forward to my first television spot I made was a pretty big moment for me, because that's all I really wanted to ever do, is to make television spots. And I made my first one. It was great. It's not worth mentioning what it was because it sucked. But it was just so great. I flew down, lived in a hotel I was in San Francisco. I flew down, lived in a hotel in Santa Monica for 2 weeks. I was 26. You can imagine how that went. It was pretty great. That was a pivotal moment. But I think once I got to Young and Rubicam, and I was part of the lead team on Land Rover. That was a huge moment, because big clients. I got to work on all of their they had 4 cars at the time. I got to work on each one. We did a campaign for each one during my couple of years on there, and being put on that team was big because we knew it was gonna be great work, but it was also gonna be for a prestige brand, and so everything honestly just took off from there. Once I got on that and we started doing work, it all just sort of snowballed, and put it in the best of ways.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So just as sort of an overview, do you have most of your experience in the TV spot sort of realm of creative, or do you more print, or a combination?
Now it's mostly TV, just because my team it's sort of compartmentalized. I run all the AV, the TV stuff, and then we have somebody who's leading the static stuff. That's not to say I don't get involved in that, but I'm not running that. Before it was a combination of both. Like, and by before, I mean when I was working for ad agencies, especially back in, like, I don't know, the early 2000s, around there, we did a ton of print, and I love doing print. And by the way, my background is not a designer. My background is as a copywriter, in case you didn't get that. Ad agencies, the way they're structured, the way the teams are structured, there's a team, there's a copywriter, and there's an art director, and they team up and they come up with ideas, and then they separate, and the copywriter writes the scripts or writes the copy for print ads. The art director either directs designers, or if they're a designer by trade, they design whatever it is themselves. But back in the day, there's a ton more print that was happening, and so I would say it was 50-50. Actually 50-50 between those two, and then there'd be some digital stuff that was thrown in as well along the lines, and now we're doing a lot more digital stuff that we did back then.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so my next question is, I'd like to know if you could walk us through your creative process when you're approaching new projects, specifically like campaigns, like Disney Plus Unexpected, or even Ready Player One.
Yeah, those are very different. The way those sort of happen are very, very different. I'll go into both of those because they're different. And I'll go into another one as well. Let me start with the one you didn't mention. I'll talk about a Land Rover campaign, which was, which one do I want to pick? Let's take mine. So we did this campaign for the Land Rover LR3, which was a new car at the time. It's a big sort of boxy car. And me and my partner at the time, we were charged with coming up with the campaign. And at that time, I was an associate creative director, and he was too. He on the art side and I was on the copy side. And basically, we were briefed by the strategy team, writes a brief, the client signs off on that brief. And basically the brief is saying, here's the background, here's what we're advertising, here's some background on that product. Here's who we're talking to. We're talking to men and women from 30 to 37, household income, et cetera, who love adventure. Whatever, I just made that up. And then what are we producing? We're producing a campaign for this car. Then we go off. If you're a team, you go off and you sit in a room, most oftentimes with a lot of candy and coffee or tea and potato chips, and you just throw ideas back and forth. And that's my favorite part of this business, and it always will be, where you're just sitting there, and sometimes you have a whiteboard, sometimes you just tack stuff onto the wall, whatever it might be, and you're just sitting there and throughout, what if we jumped the Land Rover off a cliff, and the campaign would be Land Rover jumps off cliffs. That's stupid, but just throwing these crazy ideas off of each other until you have a decent handful that you present to the higher ups and eventually to the client. And that's sort of the process for that. Me personally, before I got into that room, I would always come to the table with ideas. I would most times the ideas come when driving, in the shower, or not that everybody should do this, but having a glass of wine at the end of the day, just to switch things up a little bit. And I would come to the table with just a notebook full of ideas to present to my partner at the time, and then we talk about those ideas. So that's sort of the process for that. For Ready Player One, it's a much simpler process, because by the time we did that, I was a creative director and I had a team of 20 at that time, 22 maybe. Anyway, big teams, and we had 3 teams working on Ready Player One. And that was a really easy one, because one of the teams came to us with a bunch of ideas, and like one of the ideas was, what we should do? We should build a maze somehow. The Ready Player One logo is actually a maze. And so we just started riffing on it. And like that ended up being, let's build a huge maze so you can see it from space. Well, we built it, and well, we didn't personally build it. We hired a company to build it. Couldn't see it from space, but you can see it from, probably a helicopter. And so that's where that came from. One of the teams had the germ of an idea, and we developed it together. Well, the other one was unexpected or surprise. What was the other one?
Well, Disney Plus Unexpected.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
talk about what you're into, though.
Yeah, so that one, it's a little bit different process on that one too, because we work differently here. Now it's not an ad agency. We don't, some of the ideas we come up with ourselves, some of the ideas we partner with outside agencies, advertising agencies where I used to work. So, which is kind of interesting. It's all coming full circle. For that one, we internally, by we, I mean me and my boss here, who oftentimes works as a creative partner, because we both sort of come from the world of creative, and which is great to have a boss like that. He's a vice president. We just sat down and we started throwing ideas back and forth for this campaign. The strategy for the campaign was like, there's a lot of stuff on Disney Plus that you wouldn't really expect. You expect Mickey Mouse, you expect Marvel stuff, Marvel, you expect Iron Man, you expect Luke Skywalker, but you don't expect like all these gnarly, kind of dark Marvel shows like The Punisher, or even like Daredevil, or even like Deadpool, which is, if you've seen it, it's pretty racy. It's like a lot of violence and a lot of like, racy jokes and nudity and all that stuff. You don't expect that stuff to be on Disney Plus. So we came up with this theme line, surprise, it's on Disney Plus. And that ended up being the whole campaign. And then we briefed outside agencies. We're like, here's the theme line, here's what we want to do. Okay, this agency, we want you to work on a heartfelt spot, 60-second spot where it's voiceover throughout. That's just sort of explaining what this all means. Now, you agency, you're more talented at doing like animation. So we want you to do a fully animated 30-second spot that brings the surprises on Disney Plus to life. And so we did like a bunch of those. We also did a print campaign, or not a campaign, but a print component of that campaign, which my design partner, it's not my design partner, but Mila runs the design part of the show. We all partnered together and came up with a print campaign that accompanies that. So sort of 3 different approaches, but I mean, ultimately when I'm doing the work myself, my approach is really just like either find a quiet space or just be alone and go for a walk or go for a drive or whatever it might be, and just have that notebook always at the ready, just for ideas.
Great. So just to follow up on that, what steps do you take to foster a collaborative environment during the ideation, the execution phases?
I think I guess it depends on who we're collaborating with. I'll just use, like, currently, since we're collaborating with outside agencies, I made a point to and we partner with a ton of agencies. It's really important to me to get to know personally the people at these agencies, so that when we're working on a project together, it feels like a very sort of natural collaboration, and where I can just get on the phone and call somebody and just say, hey, Brian, what's going on? Let's just have a conversation about this. It's really easy. And I think other people maybe in this industry do this, where they brief somebody, they say, okay, go. And they sit back 6 months or 6 weeks later, they wait for the spot. I can't do that. Communication is the key, especially when you're working with people who aren't in the office with you. You just need to have that constant communication. Now, for people that you're working with and collaborating with, it's sort of that are in the office, that are on your same team, it's the exact same thing. It's all about communication. It's just all about, like, even if you have differences of opinion, talking those out, and just trying to always make the work better. Try to always plus it up and sharing the work. Like, we'll share work with people who aren't necessarily involved with the project directly, to say, what do you think? What you're creative, but you have sort of an outside view. How can you make this better? Or can you make this better? And they'll, oftentimes come up with ideas you never even thought of. So, I mean, to me, it's that communication and collaborating with people who you aren't necessarily working directly on projects with, and getting opinions. My wife is a great sounding board. My son too. I have a youngish son, but who's also a huge Star Wars and Marvel, and above all else, a Simpsons fan. And so I'll bounce things off him because he'll have a point of view that's totally different. Like I never even thought of before, but he's the audience for some of this stuff. So I think soliciting opinions from a variety of people is also really important. It's a form of collaboration as well.
Great, great. I would love to see some of your work if you want to share some of your pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go right ahead and do that.
Yeah, let's go. Let me see if I can do this. I think nope, wait, advanced video. We were just talking about the surprise campaign. So let me show you a couple things from that. I'll start with, let's see. I think this is the launch spot for the unexpected campaign. I think this is the one. Yeah, it's a 60-second spot.
You all know me.
You don't know everything.
I don't.
You don't know.
Everything.
I don't know, I don't know.
I want to know. Show me where we're going.
Show me.
Show
Everything.
Where is it?
Outside.
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 The box.
Box.
It's unusual.
Unique?
And unexpectedly hot.
This is totally different.
Different.
Tell me something.
What?
Where do you get all this
All this joy.
adventure?
Fun. Action.
I want it all. I want it now. I want to dance. Surprise.
So that's one component of the campaign. Let me show you something else. The campaign, I think we did like 6 or 7 spots and a bunch of print, which I will also show you if I can figure out how to do that. I think I can. So that was a clip, what we call a clip spot, a bunch of different clips and sound bites stitched together to form a cohesive whole. Now, here's what we did. I think I mentioned this earlier. This is an animated approach to that campaign.
Welcome to the unexpected, a place where Free Solo meets Han Solo, and Big Hero 6 meets the Fab Four, where founding fathers sing, men on a mission look danger straight in the eye, and women of action blaze their own trails. So, where can you find all this and more? Surprise! It's on Disney Plus.
We love
That's
that
fabulous
spot.
animation.
Isn't that great? That company that we partner with is phenomenal, and all the different styles of animation all sort of stitched together. I thought that they came up with that idea. I thought it was brilliant.
So just a quick question. So
yeah.
the animation for that, you said it was outsourced. Do you do that a lot for much of the design work? Is it outsourced, or do you have a on staff creatives on staff that can do that work?
It's both. It's so for things like that's going to be animation. It's going to be illustration, animation, in addition to design. We'll outsource that because this is going to sound funny. We're Disney, but our group doesn't have a resource that we can't just go across the street to Walt Disney Animation Studios and say, can you just stop working on that movie for a second, because we need you to make a commercial. That doesn't, or we can't call Pete Docter at Pixar and say, hey Pete, I know you're working on the next Inside Out, but can you make this for us? It doesn't quite work that way. I wish it did. So yeah, for stuff like that we outsource it, but we also for the static stuff, especially for that design and art direction, we do have a small but mighty team of designers here who work under my partner Mila, who I mentioned before. So what you're going to see right now, I'm going to show you, see if I can do this. Very basic. Oh, there we go. So this is the static companion to what you just saw for the surprise campaign. Can you see that?
Yes.
So these are all over major cities when this campaign ran, and these were I think these were mostly designed internally. I think we might have brought in an agency to clean things up a little bit. But this is, so what the idea behind this, as you can probably guess, is we are combining two things into one cohesive whole. So we have a Beatles documentary on Disney Plus on the service. And also, so obviously we don't talk about Bruno. We have that as well. So the whole idea for this campaign was to combine these two like things, and then all leading to surprises on Disney Plus. So not only are there Beatles on, you expect Bruno to be on Disney Plus, an animated feature, but you may not expect the Beatles to be there. Same thing. So this one, can I zoom in on this? There we go. So this is New York. I don't know if you can see this, but this one says where Toy Story meets West Side Story. Right. The one on the left says Loki in the Sky with Diamonds, talking about Loki's there and also the Beatles. The one over to the right of the big John, Paul, George, and Bruno says, do you want to build the greatest showman? So combining the greatest showman with Frozen. And then I can't even, I can't even read the other one, it's too blurry.
I think that's A Bug's Life meets the Beatles. Ah, yeah.
Oh, there it is. Good eyeballs. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So as far as the design goes, we wanted to keep this really simple. Obviously all type. I think we did an exploration using imagery, using Beatles imagery, along with Bruno. It just didn't have the same impact. And there's, and you know this, and I'm sure your students know this as well, but there's just so much clutter out there. You walk out, you're driving, you walk out, and pretty much any big city, you're going to see billboards and bus shelters and bus benches, and it's just, there's ads everywhere and non-ads everywhere too, but just signage all over the place. So it's always a constant challenge to figure out in print, especially, and figure out a way to break through. And oftentimes the way to break through is not to do something super complicated, or even try to do something beautiful, but to just scale everything back. Now, when we did this was kind of, the word use the word revolutionary. I don't know, I might be overselling it, but it was the design itself was unexpected for Disney Plus, because everything we had done up to this point was showing characters and faces or faraway lands and all that stuff. But for this, we wanted, and for the commercials too, for the AV, the campaign is surprises on Disney Plus. It's called the Unexpected campaign. We wanted the work itself to be unexpected. We wanted our approach to the work, we wanted that to be unexpected as well. So that sort of led us to this all type approach, which I think really stood out. And if you look, this is New York, but we took over Times Square as well, to where all the digital boards were this campaign. And it was really striking, because there's so much stuff going on in Times Square at all times, as you know. But when these took over all the boards, I think it was called like a Times Square domination. It really stood out because the negative space, the white space, and it's all type. Yeah. So just a little background on that.
That's excellent. And that gives people an opportunity to remember and to bring up their own memories and to tie in their own experience with the ad, and hopefully have something to relate to in that way.
100%. And 100%. And I would add to that, the print that you just saw was one of the rationales for doing that, was to get people involved in it, to get them to try to look at it and like, something's amiss, something's different. What does this all add up to sort of get them invested in what we were presenting, so they could make the connection themselves. And if they're doing it, if they're standing there looking at this board, at these words, this type, and wondering what the hell it is, and trying to figure it out and putting it all together, and then hopefully having that aha moment, we've won, because we've gotten them invested in the work. And hopefully that'll stay in their mind a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Do you want to see anything else, or is that should we keep going?
I would love to. I'd love to. We actually, as far as time is concerned, we got 10 minutes before the 10-minute warning. So okay. We're good. You want to share something else? That'd be great.
Sure. I have a bunch of stuff. So saw goats already. So this, let me show you another. So we do a lot of mostly we'll do spots that are based on clips and shots and sound bites from existing movies and TV shows, like the one you just saw. But like the one you just saw a couple of spots ago. But we'll also do shoots every so often. So you saw the goat spot where we rounded up 47 goats, I think. By the way, word of the wise, don't ever shoot with goats. It was so much fun. It was great, but it was.
Oh, looks like I'm gonna have to strike my next assignment then.
Oh, it's too bad.
Oh
Well, now you
gosh.
know. Now you know. Don't shoot with goats, but do shoot with Aquafina because she's kind of awesome. She was just phenomenal. She's great. Just a very she brought like 3 of her friends. They just hung out. She's just a great normal person who just happens to be like one of the funniest people you've ever met. She's great. So anyway, so that was that campaign. We did that shoot. So this is another campaign, another shoot that we did called Get the Feeling. And I'll just show this and then we'll talk about it.
It's okay that we're here.
It's okay that you're here.
It's good.
I'm not parked illegally.
You're parked very illegally.
I'm not parked illegally.
I get the feeling he's been watching all the Star Wars movies on Disney Plus.
With every Star Wars movie and the Book of Boba Fett, plus your favorites from Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and Nat Geo, you'll get the feeling too, only on Disney Plus.
That was awesome.
That's fun. Yeah, it was pretty fun. It wasn't pretty fun. It was really fun. We did 7 of those spots. We shot in 3 days. That's my favorite of them all. Just the acting, the script, just and the concept. It just all works, I thought, really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun. So a couple more. These are going to be clip spots. This is, what is this? It's in my folder for this meeting or for this show. So I'm just going to play it. Let's see what it is.
When there's nowhere else to run.
Where are we?
If you can't hold on.
This is our home now.
If you can't hold on. If you can't hold on.
Remember who you are.
When all these things that I've done. If you can't hold on. Hold
So that was for the Disney bundle. I should have mentioned, but I didn't know what spot that was. That's the other part of my job, working on a Disney bundle, which is Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus. And you can either buy Disney Plus separately or you can buy all 3 together because they're all owned by Disney. I didn't, just thinking about that, the song was from a band called The Killers, which I'm guessing to most of your class is probably an oldies group by this point. As opposed to like an alt rock band. One more spot. This is also for the bundle. This is a 30-second spot. I just love that there's a couple of things I love about this spot. I love the music, and I just love the edit. It has just a certain power to it and a certain feel to it that to me feels pretty unique in this space. So here we go.
This is our home.
This is intense.
This is different.
This is a bold choice.
This is our family.
This is just the beginning.
This.
This is us. This is the way.
This is the Disney Bundle.
There you go. You know what? Sorry, I got to show one more spot.
Go
I just
for it.
realized there's one I really want to show. I recognize this family.
Good morning, Homer. It's morning.
Season 34 of The Simpsons
What? Those
Randos?
is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Oh, now I don't get it.
Well, get this.
Here's our pitch.
It's where you'll also find this guy,
Streaming services. Sweet.
those aliens,
Everyone clap.
and whatever the hell is going on here.
TV, dumb it down for me.
Season 34 of The Simpsons, and so much more, all on Disney Plus.
That's
All right.
amazing.
Fun. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you for that one.
Of course.
So I've got one final question. And that would be, let's see here. Hold on just a minute. Get my notes here. So regarding let me say that again. Let me say this again. So you have received a bunch of awards. And I've noticed you got Clios, you got Webbies, you've mentioned the Andes, which to be honest with you, I don't think I've heard of the Andes. That's an international award, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how do these recognitions contribute to your motivation and, your professional sort of trajectory?
They were huge in my trajectory. Because I mean, like I mentioned, that one of the turning points was when I went from New York to San Francisco. And the only reason I got recruited to come out to San Francisco was because somebody had seen my work, and they saw my work because it won a few awards, including the Andes. So in the advertising business, in this sort of business, one way that you move up and move ahead is by winning awards. It's for better or worse, There's a lot of debate about that. But it's one way that you get ahead. It's oftentimes more challenging to move up within an agency or within a company. It's more difficult to do that than it is to move up by going from one agency to the next, like I've done. And that's sort of how I ended up rising, to getting to where I am now by just taking bigger jobs by going to different agencies. So yeah, that really did kick off my career by winning awards. It used to be a huge deal to me. I'll admit, I used to go to all the shows and, eat all the free food and just get so excited if we won something, to go up and give a speech, and that was all really cool. But now I've been in the business for quite a long time. It's still cool to go to the awards ceremony sometimes, but it's still really gratifying to win those awards. But it's just not as big of a deal for me in this current position. We just won a bunch of what's called Promax awards. Promax is the awards system for the entertainment business. None of those awards are going to make me president of Netflix, which I don't really want to be, except for the salary. That would be sweet, but the headaches, no thanks. So I still really enjoy it. I think it's great that the work is recognized, and I like that I'm recognized by my peers, because those are the people who are voting for it. But as far as doing anything for me now, not as much. Earlier in my career, huge.
Yeah, it's interesting that you put it that way, because as a graphic designer, I've been a designer since 91-ish.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is when I'm captured, when I'm in an agency or in a company, moving up in the ranks has been challenging, because when they have somebody that knows their product, that knows the services, and knows the style, the design that they're shooting for, then they want to keep that, right? So it is kind of tough
100%.
to move up in the same company. So moving to another company altogether is really one of the only ways to do that.
It's true.
That I've found.
Oh, you're 100% right, David. I mean, it's also when you are working at an agency, you are sort of pigeonholed as a certain thing. For designers, you are pigeonholed oftentimes as a designer, not as an art director, right? Even though people are fully capable of moving from designer to art director. Even hands-on, okay, you can move up, but you'll be hands-on art director, still do design, but you'll be managing these other people and overseeing people. It's challenging because you get pigeonholed. Even for me, being in a place where I was a copywriter, as I started, moving up to being the associate creative director. It wasn't going to happen in my first agency. It only happened when I, moved to a different one in a different state.
Well, that brings us to the end of our conversation. And first of all, thank you so much for giving us this time, and for, I know your time is very valuable, and giving us this information about your career journey. It's been fantastic to speak with you, and I appreciate you being here.
Of course, I really enjoyed it. It's the time flew by. I can't believe it's the end. Thanks for inviting me. I don't love talking about myself, believe it or not, based on this conversation. It's the thing I like talking about least, but hopefully if somebody listens to this, they might get a nugget or two that might help them. I'm all for it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you once again for being here, and thank you all for watching the Design Rescue Show, and catch us next time. Remember to subscribe, and we will check you out next time.